The world watches once again as the flames of conflict engulf Israel and Palestine. A region steeped in history, scarred by violence, finds itself trapped in a cycle seemingly impossible to escape. The headlines scream of bombings, of rocket fire, of lives lost on both sides. But behind these stark facts lies a complex web of history, politics, and human suffering that demands deeper understanding. This is not just another news cycle, another flare-up in a distant land. The Israel war, a microcosm of the broader Middle East crisis, has implications that reverberate across the globe, shaping international relations and impacting millions of lives. It is a conflict that defies easy answers, where narratives clash and truths become obscured by the fog of war. Our aim is not to pick sides or offer simplistic solutions. Instead, we seek to delve into the heart of this decades-long struggle, to unravel the complexities and shed light on the human cost of this seemingly intractable conflict. The world bears a responsibility to understand the root causes of this conflict, to move beyond the rhetoric and seek genuine paths to peace. For only through understanding can we hope to break the cycle of violence and build a future where both Israelis and Palestinians can live in security and peace.
To grasp the present, we must journey back in time to explore the historical bedrock upon which this conflict is built. The land we know as Israel and Palestine is, for many, a sacred space, a land of religious and historical significance for Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Yet this shared heritage has also been a source of contention, a catalyst for conflict that has echoed down through generations. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948, while a watershed moment for the Jewish people, also marked the beginning of a painful displacement for Palestinians, known as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The ensuing Arab-Israeli War of 1948 saw Israel secure its independence, but also resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and the expansion of Israeli territory. This initial conflict cast a long shadow, setting the stage for future wars and escalating tensions. The Six-Day War of 1967, a decisive victory for Israel, further altered the geopolitical landscape, leading to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. The ongoing struggle for control over these territories, particularly the West Bank, lies at the heart of the current conflict.
Understanding the historical context is crucial, but recent events have fueled the current crisis. The collapse of the Oslo Accords and the Second Intifada reignited violence. Suicide bombings and targeted killings deepened distrust. The rise of Hamas in Gaza added complexity. The Gaza blockade has created a dire humanitarian situation. Settlement expansions in the West Bank remain a major obstacle to peace.
The roots of the current conflict run deep, entangled with the rise of nationalism in the 20th century. Zionism, the Jewish national movement, emerged in response to centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe, advocating for a Jewish homeland in their ancient territory. Meanwhile, Palestinian national identity began to solidify as they faced increasing Zionist immigration and British control over Palestine during the early 1900s. These parallel national movements, vying for the same land, created fertile ground for conflict. The British Mandate for Palestine, established after World War I, attempted to balance these competing claims, but ultimately failed to find a solution acceptable to both sides. The 1947 UN Partition Plan, proposing the creation of independent Jewish and Arab states, was accepted by Jewish leaders but rejected by Arab leaders, further escalating tensions. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, resulting in Israel's victory and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, solidified the deep-seated grievances that continue to shape the conflict today. The war not only redrew borders, but etched a profound sense of loss and injustice into the collective memories of both Israelis and Palestinians. These historical wounds, passed down through generations, continue to fuel distrust and animosity, making the path to reconciliation a treacherous one.
The aftermath of the 1948 war saw the rise of distinct political entities and ideologies that further complicated the conflict. Israel, establishing itself as a Jewish state, grappled with the challenges of nation-building while facing constant security threats from neighboring Arab states. The Palestinian people, scattered and dispossessed, struggled to find unity and a political voice. The Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, formed in 1964, emerged as the primary representative of the Palestinian people, advocating for their right to self-determination. However, internal divisions within the PLO, ranging from secular nationalism to Islamism, hindered their ability to present a united front. On the Israeli side, the political landscape witnessed a shift towards the right, with a growing emphasis on security and territorial control. The expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied territories, a policy supported by successive right-wing governments, deepened Palestinian resentment and became a major point of contention. The failure to find a lasting solution to the Palestinian refugee crisis, with millions still living in camps across neighboring countries, further fueled the cycle of anger and resentment. The early 1990s offered a glimmer of hope with the signing of the Oslo Accords. These landmark agreements, signed in 1993 and 1995, aimed to establish a framework for peace based on a two-state solution. The Accords recognized the PLO as a negotiating partner and granted them limited self-governance in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The handshake between Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat on the White House lawn, witnessed by the world, symbolized the promise of a new era. However, the euphoria surrounding Oslo proved to be short-lived. The Accords, while a significant breakthrough, failed to address crucial issues such as the final status of Jerusalem, the fate of Israeli settlements, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Moreover, the agreements faced strong opposition from both Israelis and Palestinians. Many Israelis viewed it as a concession to terrorism, while many Palestinians saw it as falling short of their aspirations for a fully independent state. This internal opposition, coupled with the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin by a Jewish extremist in 1995, dealt a fatal blow to the peace process. The Oslo Accords, once a beacon of hope, ultimately sowed the seeds for further disillusionment and violence. The collapse of the Oslo peace process and the growing frustration on both sides culminated in the outbreak of the Second Intifada in September 2000, triggered by the controversial visit of Ariel Sharon, then Israeli opposition leader, to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a site holy to both Jews and Muslims. The Second Intifada marked a turning point in the conflict. Unlike the largely nonviolent First Intifada of the late 1980s, the Second Intifada was characterized by increased violence, including suicide bombings by Palestinian militants and targeted killings by Israeli forces. The construction of the Israeli separation barrier, intended to prevent attacks, further inflamed Palestinian anger, cutting off communities and impacting livelihoods. The Second Intifada resulted in a significant loss of life on both sides and deepened the divisions between Israelis and Palestinians. It also led to the rise of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which won the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections. The subsequent takeover of Gaza by Hamas in 2007, ousting the rival Fatah faction, further fragmented the Palestinian political landscape. The Second Intifada marked a descent into a new level of violence and mistrust, leaving lasting scars on the region and pushing the prospect of a peaceful resolution further out of reach. Gaza, a pressure cooker ignites. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, is a focal point of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ruled by Hamas since 2007, Gaza endures a crippling blockade by Israel and Egypt. The blockade has devastated the civilian population, creating a humanitarian crisis. Repeated fighting between Israel and Hamas exacerbates the situation. Healthcare is overwhelmed, unemployment is rampant, and access to essentials is limited. The people of Gaza, trapped in poverty and violence, pay a heavy price for a conflict they did not choose. The shifting sands of regional alliances. The Israel-Palestine conflict has long shaped Middle Eastern politics. The Arab Spring uprisings of 2011 brought significant changes. These uprisings unleashed new forces and challenges. The Syrian civil war further destabilized the region. The Abraham Accords in 2020 marked a shift in alliances, normalizing relations between Israel, UAE, and Bahrain. These agreements reflect the evolving geopolitical landscape. The rise of social media, a new battlefield emerges. The digital age has revolutionized conflicts, including the Israel-Palestine conflict. Social media, once tools for free speech, are now battlegrounds for propaganda and misinformation. Both sides use social media to spread narratives and mobilize supporters. Misinformation and hate speech online polarize public opinion. The lines between fact and fiction have blurred. Algorithms amplify extreme content, worsening tensions. Social media empowers citizens to document abuses and amplify voices. Smartphone footage brings conflict realities to global audiences, bypassing traditional media. Increased visibility leads to accusations of bias and manipulation. Section 4, International Response, a symphony of condemnation and inaction. The international community has long been engaged in efforts to resolve the Israel-Palestine conflict. The United Nations has passed numerous resolutions condemning violence. However, the UN Security Council has been largely ineffective due to the U.S. veto power. The European Union has criticized Israeli settlement expansion and provided financial assistance, but internal divisions have hampered the EU's efforts. The U.S., seen as biased towards Israel, recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The international community's response has been characterized by a disconnect between rhetoric and action. Concrete steps to hold parties accountable and implement a lasting peace agreement have been lacking.
Section 1. Political Tremors. Israel's Internal Struggle. Within Israel, the ongoing conflict has ignited fierce internal debates, exposing deep societal fractures. The country, often touted for its robust democracy, grapples with the weight of occupation and the complexities of maintaining a Jewish and democratic identity. Right-wing factions, emboldened by the growth of settlements and a perception of security threats, advocate for annexation of the West Bank and a more hardline approach towards Palestinians. Conversely, left-leaning voices, though increasingly marginalized, continue to advocate for a two-state solution, emphasizing the need for territorial compromise and a negotiated peace agreement. They argue that the current trajectory, marked by continued occupation and settlement expansion, is unsustainable and detrimental to Israel's long-term security and international standing. This internal struggle is further complicated by the rise of religious nationalism, which views the land of Israel as inherently belonging to the Jewish people, based on biblical claims. This ideology, gaining traction within Israeli society, poses a significant challenge to the two-state paradigm and fuels tensions with the Palestinian population. The conflict, therefore, is not merely an external threat to Israel, but an internal pressure cooker, simmering with ideological clashes and challenging the very fabric of its society.
Section 2. The Palestinian Divide, Unity and Discord. The stark division between Fatah in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza exemplifies internal fragmentation. This division weakens the Palestinian position in negotiations, hindering a united front.
Section 3, Regional Dominoes, Instability and Shifting Alliances. The Abraham Accords reflect evolving regional dynamics, creating new cooperation between Israel and some Arab states against Iran. Section 4, A World Stage, International Actors and the Quest for Influence. The US, Russia, and the EU play pivotal roles, but diverging interests hinder a cohesive international strategy. Section 1. The Human Face of Conflict, Stories of Loss and Resilience. Families live in constant fear, their lives punctuated by sirens and the scramble for safety. Yet, amidst the ruins, there are stories of remarkable resilience. Doctors and nurses work tirelessly in under-equipped hospitals. Teachers strive to provide normalcy for traumatized children. Community leaders seek common ground and promote dialogue. Displacement and dispossession, a legacy of broken homes. The ongoing occupation has led to internal displacement, creating immense human suffering and a legacy of resentment. A generation in the shadows, the plight of children. Children grow up surrounded by violence, their childhoods marred by fear and loss. Many exhibit symptoms of trauma, including anxiety and depression. The conflict's impact on children represents a tragic loss of innocence. The crumbling infrastructure, a daily struggle for survival. In Gaza, the blockade leads to shortages of food, medicine, and building materials. The conflict's impact on infrastructure exacerbates existing inequalities and deepens resentment. A fragile hope, the quest for a negotiated settlement. Various peace initiatives have faltered due to a lack of political will and shifting regional dynamics. The search for a just and lasting peace remains elusive. The two-state solution, a distant horizon? The expansion of Israeli settlements has fragmented the territory, challenging the establishment of a viable Palestinian state. Deep mistrust and right-wing nationalism in Israel further diminish the prospects for a two-state solution. The role of international actors, from mediation to accountability. The international community's effectiveness is limited by a lack of consensus and competing interests. Section 4. Building bridges, not walls. The power of civil society. Grassroots initiatives offer hope, demonstrating the power of dialogue and empathy. These initiatives play a vital role in keeping the hope of peace alive. Section 1. The weight of history, the urgency of now. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to cast a long shadow over the Middle East. The cycle of violence perpetuates fear, anger, and despair. The complexities of the conflict demand a nuanced understanding that transcends the blame game. Section 2. Beyond the headlines, a shared humanity. Families on both sides share the universal desire for safety and dignity. Recognizing this shared humanity lays the groundwork for a different kind of conversation. Section 3. Seeds of peace nurturing hope in barren land. Despite the obstacles, the pursuit of peace cannot be abandoned. The cost of inaction is too high. Mutual recognition and territorial compromise remain relevant. The international community has a crucial role. Moving beyond condemnations to concrete actions is essential. Empowering voices of moderation and peace-building is key. Small acts of courage sow the seeds of lasting peace. The pursuit of peace must remain the ultimate goal. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. A brighter future can be built upon the foundations of peace.